S plural. We're talking Airbnb. I'm pretty excited about this because this is a part of real estate that I have looked at, just from the outside. I haven't participated in the short term rentals in the Airbnb world. So really wanted to have this conversation with individuals that I consider my mentors in this space. So thank y'all so much for agreeing to do this. I'm going to ask questions. Hopefully that's okay, Carmen and Shane. But
It's
before I do that, tell us a little bit about yourself so everyone welcome in Carmen and Shane Feist. We want to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We are Carmen and Shane Feist, and we are the Feist team with eXp Realty. And we have been in the real estate space for ever because we're old.
Since 2007, 2008, right in there.
and so we started way back in 2007, 2008 as investors. We were flipping houses. We were doing short sale flips, and kind of have grown through everything. But our latest, venture, the thing that we love the most, that we've come to love the most actually in real estate, has been Airbnb rentals. So about 6 years ago, actually, we accidentally got into Airbnb rentals because we wanted to buy a cabin, and we, to be honest, couldn't take on the extra payments. And so we thought, what if we could have other people pay for us to have a cabin? And so just over 6 years ago, we bought our first rental, and
our first Airbnb
rental, yes. And we quickly realized how awesome it was and how great it felt. Honestly, for me, I love being able to give people a vacation, give them an actual experience. That's something that really excites me. But what always excites me is money. And so realizing how much money we could make through this, we actually have expanded, and we took our one property that had 2 rentals on it last year. We doubled that. We used the equity from that and bought 2 more. So now we currently have 4 Airbnb rentals, and we are growing. Is that about it?
That's good enough.
I love it. Well, one of the biggest things, and thank you for that really sets the stage on what we're covering today when it comes to Airbnbs and short-term rentals. Now, one of the reservations that newbies such as myself have is either their false beliefs, or maybe just we don't know what we don't know until we know it. Whatever the case may be, there's always that desire to get into it because we see successful investors such as yourselves. You'll talk about it, but there's that entry point, right? Like, where do we go? How do we start? How does that happen? So can you talk about those people that are interested? Let's just go straight into forget trying to sell on the idea, hey, you should do Airbnb. Talk to us as if we're ready to make the jump. What should we be looking at? What should we consider? What's a good entry point so as to actually take action?
So I think the biggest thing is, for me, when I'm going to look for a new investment, to me, it's all about the money. And like I said, in the first case scenario was just me wanting an Airbnb. Now I have cabins, and now it's about the investment side of it. So if you're looking to get into it, I would say first you need to think about financing, and how are you going to get that financing? Are you going to go through a bank? Are you going to use cash? And how much you need to have down? And so once you figure that out, you can kind of figure out what your budget is. For us, in our experience, when we go to the bank to get these financed, they're asking for 20% down typically. And they are a little bit different animals. So you have to maybe talk to some different banks in order to get these types of things invested or funded, because it's sort of a cabin and it's sort of a business. It's a hybrid.
I think the one thing is that everything we do is in LLCs. We do protect ourselves using LLCs, which as soon as you go to an LLC versus buying something personally, it becomes a little bit harder to finance them. So you have to make sure you get a lender who's able to do that. And usually when you do an LLC, they're going to want more down than like your 3 or 5%. Usually you're not living there, not owner occupied. They're going to want closer to 20%. The one thing that Karma was talking about is finding your budget. The nice thing about that is once you kind of know what your budget is that you can afford the down payment and that you can get financing for, then you can start doing the research to find out, okay, where's a good investment? I think one of the pitfalls I see for people is they go on vacation somewhere and they're like, I love this area, I want to come here. And that's what they get stuck on. And instead of like looking at the money side of it, they're more like, I want a vacation there and I want an Airbnb there. Sometimes that's not the best spot for you to buy an Airbnb. It's not the best return on your investment.
Yeah, it's two totally different animals. So if you want it for a vacation home, that's very different than if you want it as an investment. And you can absolutely do both of those things. But one of the things that Shane is alluding to is when you go to some of these big condo communities and they have management fees and stuff like that. So that takes away from your profits right off the bat. So once you figure out financing, for me, I just go in searching in the areas that I'm looking for. And honestly, I use Realtor.com because we have, as real estate agents, we have access to our local MLS, but it's not as good when you get outside of our area. So I go to Realtor.com and I just start searching around the areas that I'm looking for and start looking for interesting properties that kind of fit what I would want in a vacation home. And then there's other resources you can use. We're getting like really deep in the weeds here.
Right.
But this is so good because it's what people are wondering. How do I figure out if it is a good deal? And you can do that on your own through just like researching, going on Airbnb.com, VRBO.com, and seeing in that area that you found a cool house in, how much the nightly fees are, how many people can stay in a house that's similar in size, and how much they're charging per night. And then like when we bought our first one, we just guessed. We had no idea that there were resources available.
We were just hoping that it would give us a certain amount of money.
It basically was like, well, we need to have $9,000 a year to be able to cover the expenses of this place. And what does that look like? So we kind of thought, how much at the low end would it rent for? And so we just kind of like figured our way through it. And luckily it worked out. The other tool that we can recommend that you can use is airdna.com. And they have what they call a rentalizer. It is free for a very limited time. Like they cut you off after a certain number of searches, and then it's super expensive, but it's also really a very good tool. I can't say that I would recommend that you pay for it, but it definitely, if you can use it while it's free, it's a really good way to start looking at different areas that you're kind of thinking about investing and finding out which ones actually are going to pay the most. And then once I've narrowed it down to a few houses that have a really good rental potential, that's my number one criteria, has a really good rental criteria, then we go out and start looking. We do a tour and check them out and see if we like it, see how much work it's going to need.
Because once we figure out, that area, like for example, if you're looking at a lake and this part of the lake gets $300 a night for a 2-bedroom place. Well, now you can just keep your eyes out for 2 bedrooms in that area that come into the price range that you're looking for. That's kind of what we do a lot of, is we check a few different areas, then we know what price we're at, we know what we got to make, what we got to buy it for, and then we can kind of keep a search going, because the odds of you doing this and then finding one right away is very slim in this market.
In this market is a little more difficult, but they're still there.
No, so that's awesome. And something you mentioned, I really want to harp on, because that's really the goal of this channel. You were talking about, we're going really in depth. That's really what the audience is going to appreciate the most, because there's plenty of other channels out there and videos out there that will say, get into Airbnb because it's amazing, it's great, it's awesome. But when somebody scratches a little bit further, well, I don't know, I've never done it. So, I mean, I've just heard, right? So it's a mutual friend of ours talks about, being a practitioner. So that's really where I have no clue how to do this. So that's where I wanted to have professionals on the channel and highlight the fact that yes, Airbnb is possible. I'm seeing that with my own two eyes, but I certainly couldn't speak to it in terms of the majority of the audience here is real estate agents. So we'll talk about something that you've created here in a little bit to help real estate agents with this real estate niche per se, this investment opportunity for real estate agents, because it's highly lucrative, as you know, I have come to find out. Now, something I wanted to ask was, one of my mental blocks was I'm not in an area that's even for, you know, I immediately think of Airbnb. When I thought Airbnb, I thought, well, that'll work in markets like New York. That'll work in markets like Orlando. That'll work in markets where there's a heavy travel, just a heavy travel, right? So talk to us about, for those individuals that are in smaller markets, is that an opportunity? Is that are we being short-sighted by having that thought in our mind?
I definitely think there is a market all over the place for these, because you don't realize how many people have moved away from staying in hotels over the last few years. And probably a lot of our audience can probably attest to that. Before, 4 years ago, most of you probably have never stayed in an Airbnb or VRBO. So over the last couple of years, business has gone up dramatically. And a lot of that is people are realizing how great it is to just stay in a place, be able to, make a sandwich for lunch instead of go out or whatever, and just have a place that you can have as your home away from home, where you can sit on a couch, you can sit at a dining room table, you can sit out back and have a fire if it's that kind of place. And it's not necessarily, you don't have to. And so people, whether they're traveling on business, if you're in an area where a lot of business is happening, or even people are moving to the area for businesses. We actually left an area that was like that, and the opportunity for Airbnb there is really, really high, because there's some big hospitals there's some big insurance companies. And so it's a kind of transient area where people are moving in, where they're going to have to travel several times before they, make the step, make the move. The other thing is, you'd be really surprised at what areas actually people want to go to.
So the thing that everyone wants something different from a vacation. If you live in a small town, you're probably maybe looking at going to a city for, a vacation. If you live in a city, you're probably looking at going somewhere more rural for a vacation. So you have to think about those things, that not everybody wants to go to Nashville. Not everybody wants to go to Orlando. Some people want to get away from Chicago or something. And that's, we're in Wisconsin, if you can't tell by the accents, but
you have an accent. I don't have an accent.
Right. So what we found is that sometimes those areas that most people would think are the best areas to Airbnb are actually the least profitable. First of all, the property values are usually higher. Second of all, you're saturated with a lot of other competition. Right. Where we actually have our Airbnbs right now is very rural areas, which you would think, if I told you the cities, towns, you wouldn't even know where they are on a map. So it's like one of those things where you're like, wow, that makes that kind of money there. Why? So we had to really start diving in and being more open to just looking at all areas, not just, hey, I want to go to this metropolitan area because there's a lot of people there that, are coming in for concerts or whatever.
The other thing is, the next area that I'm looking at is, you all know those little small towns that have like a cute little shopping district, and people will just go away there for a weekend or a girls' weekend or whatever. A lot of those little towns have some tremendous opportunity, because people really just want to go there and just get away and maybe have something to do if they get bored, so they can just stroll downtown. So one of the areas we're looking at right now, that I've had my eyes on for a little bit, is exactly that. It's an adorable little town. It has really cute shops. It has some neat restaurants, and people it's on the list for people if they're just going to go away for a weekend. So if you have towns like that, and we all do, that are not too far from your area, those might be some areas that you can search out into as well.
Figure out where your wife and her friends are going to shop, and then you just buy houses there. So
I think that's the play.
And some money.
I think that's the play, because somebody just came from a girls' weekend. No.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I like that. I like that. And no, that's such a great point. I'm even thinking about the times that I've gone to Airbnbs. It's been for bachelor parties, and you know, the first times that we started doing that with, as my friends were getting married, we would go and, it has to be next to the lake. Well, the first times no one even got into the lakes, so we started exploring other places to really make it. I don't know if it's because we got older or whatever, but we started looking more at, what do the open spaces look like. And this last one that we went in about 2 weeks ago, we went to like a trailer park, and it was just, we thought we had gotten a trailer. It just got really bad, but then it kind of opened up into a pocket of pretty awesome places. And something that no one would have thought to, at least I wouldn't have thought, hey, this is a great place to this is a great investment. So every single day was booked out when we looked on the calendar for that particular home or that Airbnb. So you're absolutely right when it comes to the areas that I hadn't really thought about, the high trafficked or high travel cities. Yeah, property values are higher. To your point, Shane, there's more competition there, so everyone automatically goes there. But then the hidden gems around there, that there's an opportunity. So hadn't considered that. That's huge.
The other thing that people often think is they think of an Airbnb as this, big house that can house 14 people. And you can find those. They're really hard to make your money on over a short time. And I tend to tell everybody that your first year, you're going to probably break even and then some, by a bit, but not a lot. And then your second year, you're going to probably do a little better. By the third year, you're probably going to be at close to what you're going to be doing for nights booked. So it takes about 3 years to get up and running. So if you're looking at some of these really expensive places that have, maybe on a lake that houses 14 or 16 people, you're looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you have a lot of expenses that come with that as well. And so keep an open mind in the type of property that you're looking for, because we have one, our smallest one only sleeps 2 people. It's a little studio cabin. We have 2 that sleep 4 people, and we have 1 that sleeps between 7 and 8. And so it's nothing massive, it's nothing huge. And of course, this isn't across the country, and actually most places in our state, you can't find these deals. But our last one we bought for $64,000, and we put 30 grand into it, and it makes $300 a night. And so you can find deals, even if you're at a place where you're like, listen, I only have $20,000 or $40,000. You can still start looking. Just be open to looking in different areas.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we've covered a good amount of the entry point. We've covered a good amount of the opportunity. I want to get to the negative, maybe because I'm a negative person, but I want to get some cons here. I want to hear some of the challenges, because if it was so easy, everybody would be doing it, right? So I want to hear some challenges from actual practitioners. What are some real life drawbacks? Maybe that's a bit extreme, but what are some things that going in you may not even realize? Now I have some already that come to mind, having spoken with y'all at length about this already, but I want to get some for the general public. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment down below. Also, don't forget to follow. Y'all are a good follow, so I have no remorse or apprehension about asking people to follow y'all on Instagram. So make sure that you're following them on Instagram, and also I'll link up their socials down below so you can check them out in action. What are some cons? What are some things that we need to be looking at as we get into this investment?
So do you have any cons? Because I
So the
tend to
first,
run most of the stuff, so I probably have more cons. So we'll let Shane
so I know the first
start.
thing that is hard for people when they get started is you have to get a certain, it's called a tourist housing license. So you have to get set up there, and I think every state is like that, I believe. So you need a tourist rooming license, right? Tourist rooming license. And then every county is a little bit different. Some counties have the specific licenses. You have to go through some inspections with the county or the tri-county areas. And then they send off a note to all of the neighbors, basically saying, hey, there's going to be an Airbnb. Do you have any objections? So there's some things that can flag it there. If you've got neighbors that are kind of jerks, we actually didn't do an Airbnb on our property because it was at our old house. We were going to Airbnb it. We didn't because we thought our neighbors were going to complain and be a pain about it.
No, he's on the town board, so I was like, if anybody's going to screw it up, it's going to be this guy. But
so that's
not that.
one. That's one
not that
issue.
big of a deal.
But no, we're talking negative, so I'm good at negative.
You don't need to.
I'm the negative one here. So those are the hardest parts at first for people to get over. It's really not that bad once you learn the steps to take.
You are right. I think people are hung up on licensing, insurance, and things like that, and just understanding it's really not that big of a deal. Make sure when you're buying a house, make sure that you are able to do an Airbnb before you purchase it. You might want to put it in as a contingency.
There is some areas in the country that do not allow short-term rentals. So you'll want to check with the local ordinances and see if there's any issues that they have.
Yeah.
Like I know for example, the town we're in now, their ordinance is however many bedrooms you have in the property that you're going to rent out as Airbnb, you have to have that many parking spots off the street. So there's weird things like that. And some of them are like so many minutes.
With that one, just make sure you cover your ass before you buy the property. I would say for me, I'm the one that does more of the daily business side of running these. And I actually hire a management company who is a national management company who handles all the reservations, the bookings, inquiries. They kind of set everything up for me. And so before I hired them, it was a much bigger deal. There were many more cons because it took a whole lot more time than it does now. But that doesn't mean that I don't have to put effort into it now. I do. And during the busy seasons of summer for us here, busy season is probably mid-May to end of August for us. And I will get different phone calls or emails, text messages from guests who are coming in or out who have different questions, or maybe they lock themselves out, can't figure out the lockbox code or things like that. So it does interrupt my life a bit. I might be out on Friday afternoon or going out to dinner or something, and I have a phone call that is coming from a number that I don't recognize. I know I have to answer it because it's probably a guest who's arriving and has some sort of issue that I need to help them with. So aside from that, another big con for me is just when people have bad reviews. Because as I said at the beginning, I really love that I get to provide people with memories that they get to keep forever. And when that doesn't go well, I take it really personally. And so that is another con.
And that brings up one more con is probably the biggest thing that we have to deal with right now is our cleaner. This has been kind of a Achilles heel a little bit for us. We've had a hard time getting a good cleaner. And part of that's because we're in rural areas. We don't have a lot of people around. We don't have a lot of these companies around. So that does make it a little more challenging. But that's been actually, most of our complaints have been because of our cleaner not doing a good job. So
that's awesome. So that's something I hadn't even considered about. So you were mentioning the management company aspect. Talk to us. That's interesting to me. Talk to us a little bit about that. Talk to us about what is their responsibility. What's your responsibility? You mentioned you're going out sometimes and with or without Shane, who knows? And a call comes through, what are they taking on that you don't have to, right? So can you elaborate on,
Yeah,
what the distinction
absolutely.
is?
So they take on everything. They're the ones, they came out, they take pictures of all of our places for their listings. They put the listings up on, I don't remember, like 10 different sites, or it might be different now, it might be more. They create the listings. I had to go through and like describe each property, exactly what it is, exactly what's included. Is there a crock pot in the kitchen? Is there a blow dryer in the bathroom? And they actually have a check mark thing you go through, give them all the information. They create the description, and then they also make it live on all those sites. If somebody asks a question, and they don't have the answer to it because it's something that hasn't been answered with all of the questions that I have answered, something unique, a unique situation or something.
Like one was, how many steps are there to the front door?
Yeah, it was somebody who had a disability and couldn't do a lot of steps. They wanted to know how many steps was it to get in, and were there steps once they got in the house because of their disability. Well, the company that I hired didn't know the answer to that. So then that person just reached out to me. I don't remember if at that time it was the management company or the person themselves, but then I answer that question and just say, give them the information that they needed. So if it's before, so if the person if the guest has a question prior to their reservation, they deal with Evolve. If Evolve is not able to answer their question, they get in touch with me, and then I'll be able to answer their question. If it's during their stay, they have direct access to me via my phone number. They also have my email if they need that. And those are the type of questions that I'll get. Like, I put in the code on your lockbox and it doesn't work. And it's always, well, did you look for the door on the side? Because it lifts up. No, I didn't see that. So it's a lot of the same questions. I'll get questions about the area. This winter, we had questions about how to ice fish in the lake. Like, do I have any tips about, ice fishing in the lake? I didn't, but I was able to share with them information for the local bait store who was able to help them out. So those are the types of questions I get.
The management company also, one of the things they do is they schedule with our cleaner now, because we actually found our own cleaners. And they actually, once guests are coming in and out, they tell our cleaner when guests are going to be there so that our cleaner knows when that they have to go and clean.
They also set all the fees for me, so I don't have to think about that. Like, if it's, the middle of April and not many people are traveling, my fee is going to be a whole lot less than it is going to be on July 4th weekend. They have a way, they have an algorithm that they use to adjust those fees, so I don't ever have to think about them. And it's set, and it's something I don't have to deal with. So I don't have to leave money on the table when I normally probably would, because it would just be easier.
Speaking of money, because you've touched real estate in so many different ways, from rehabbing, from long-term, I guess just normal rentals. Now we're talking about short-term rentals. You having touched real estate in so many different ways, as you're practicing brokers as well, real estate agents, would you ever go back, or what is your investment strategy? I'm very curious. Would you ever go back to something that's not short-term rentals? Are you super sold on it? What's your portfolio moving forward? What's your strategy? I'm curious to see, once you've seen all the different, maybe not all, a good amount of the different investment opportunities out there. I'm just curious to see, you having seen the pros and cons of each, what are you thinking?
So we'll probably always do flips. That's a whole different thing. But in terms of long-term strategy, we'll give you an idea. We sold 5 of our long-term rentals 2 weeks ago. In the last year, we probably sold, 10, maybe more of our long-term rentals, because with our long-term rentals, first off, you get a lot more wear and tear. People are living in it every single day. You don't even know if they own a vacuum.
It sounds opposite of, it really is opposite of what it sounds like. But yes, our long-term rentals got way more wear and tear on them than our short-term.
And so like one of our properties, you probably get $700 a month in rent. And instead we're making like $2,000 a month. For short-term rentals. Yes, it's a little more work because I have to take those phone calls and stuff, but I will tell you it's worth $1,300. So going forward, we are not buying long-term rentals. I don't know. It would have to be a really special case for us to buy another long-term rental.
I guess for us, as we've always been able to adjust with what's going on in the market and what we want to do. I have ADD in case you can't tell. So every 2 years, I kind of get a little bored and get a little itchy and looking for something new to do. So we really have hit the gamut on all things. I won't say we won't go back to long-term rentals. I will tell you at this point in time, if we were to go back to any long-term rentals, it'd be different than how we did before. A little bit different style rentals. We'd be a lot more picky, like she said. But I see us going more towards this avenue, and I don't know. We'll see what the future brings and where we go from there.
When I think about it, this is much more of our retirement. It's the money that's going to keep coming when we stop working. And so right now I have 4. If I doubled that, we probably wouldn't have to work again. And not that we're heading in that direction. Neither one of us really wants to quit working anytime soon. But we could definitely make it every single day with 8 of these pretty comfortably. So it's sort of our long-term retirement strategy at this point. And I'm happy to put in the little amount of work that it requires, knowing that my place is really well taken care of and I'm making a crap load of money.
I think that's going to be a reel, you know my repurposing strategy. So I think I got my next reel that's going to go viral. No, that's awesome. Thank you. And something before I lose my train of thought, something for you real estate agents out there, that's the primary viewership of the channel, that are looking to get into this investment or this type of real estate. Start going on the websites. Start going on those websites and start looking and seeing what the descriptions look like, the questions that are being asked, the reviews that are being made. There's so much learning just by having people, just visiting the websites. The next step would be giving yourself a little mini vacation and going through the experience of being a user, right? So it's something that I guess subconsciously I've been doing, because in April I'll be doing kind of like a little retreat for myself and just really looking at the business moving forward. But I'm looking at these things a little bit more actively, as opposed to, oh, let me just book my airfare, my whatever. Now, as you're looking at it from a consumer standpoint, you're starting to see the opportunity, or it becomes more real, right? So if you just think about it, it's a dream. If you write it down, it becomes more real. So that's awesome. Before we head out, I want to hear a little bit more about the program that y'all have, which is Airbnb Accelerator. That the only knowledge that I have about Airbnbs is actually through you. So talk a little bit about what that program looks like, what's included, what you cover, because I must say you were super thorough. And I feel like a semi-expert, having never touched an Airbnb.
So we had such an incredible time teaching this course. It was just so much fun. It's something obviously you can tell that we're super passionate about. And so going through it, I really tried to take the course outline from start to finish. What, like we talked about in this class, what are you, or in this video, what are you the most concerned about? How are you going to find the deals? Where are you going to invest? We start talking about that. We talk about our story a little bit so you can kind of see how we, easily doubled almost without trying, and how we can easily do it again. And so you can take like this one little seed and multiply it into something much bigger than you probably imagine when you first start. And we talk you through more on the financing, more ways. If you're not in a position to be able to go to the bank and get financing, we talk you through different ways that you can still get started. We go through the management side of it. If you're going to manage it yourself, I also share with you the management company that I use. And so you don't have to do much research on that end. What else do we go through? We go through setting up, we go through furnishing the place, making sure. One of the big things I stress is
factor.
Having a wow factor. So Jaime, as you were talking about doing some research and actually going out and taking a little vacation, getting a getaway, you're going to realize when you start looking through the different options of where you can stay, there's going to be something that draws you to the location that you choose. And so you want to make sure that you have some sort of wow factor. So I talk about ideas of how to do that to make sure your house is also furnished so that you have enough furnishings for everybody to be comfortable, because it's really about getting positive feedback, positive reviews. The faster you can get positive reviews, the sooner your business is going to grow, the more people are going to want to come. And honestly, you'll be able to charge more. You'll have more of an interest. It's all part of that. And then we talk about guest experience and how, what that looks like, how they book it, what happens when they get there, what they have to do when they leave. And then also we talk about our partners in this business, like Shane talked about, our cleaning person. You also have to have people who are able to do maintenance and all that. And we talk about really unique ways in being able to find those people.
And some of the things that we've kind of, have learned just by doing it that, you're like, oh, well, I didn't realize that, for example, we're on a lake. So we realize, oh, okay, well, we need a certain type of kayak so stuff doesn't break on them, right? So try to make things as maintenance free as possible. Maybe spend a little extra money on certain things for that wow factor or for ease of maintenance and stuff like that.
I also spend a significant amount of time kind of teaching you some tricks on how to do it on a budget, because no matter what you're doing, if you have to furnish a house from the ground up, it's gonna cost you a significant amount of money. So I give you a bunch of tips that I use to be able to get that budget down, because the more you spend getting it started, the less you're making. It's going to take you a lot longer to recoup that money in the long run. So really looking at it more as a business so that you can maximize your profits.
Well, I just think you were just so thorough with that. I don't think they even need to go to the program now. I think you just covered all of it. So thank y'all so much. That was perfect. Carmen, Shane, I always enjoy connecting with y'all. Thank you so much for sharing this valuable information with the audience, my audience more specifically, because this is something that as real estate agents, we know that at some point we have to hang up our lockbox, right? So, it's a reality. So a lot of us fail to notice that until it's 2 years down the road, or 3 years left on what we want to be doing. So this is a great avenue for real estate agents to start considering now, as they're out there day to day helping other people with their real estate investments. Well, we need to look out for ourselves before we can help others as well. So we can't give what we don't have. I appreciate y'all hanging out.
It's super fun. Thank